Welcome to the BudsnReality show, formerly known as Buds in the Basement, but we made some changes this year for season 2, as my wife would like to call it. And I'm Sean Collins, the guy with a lot to say, and I'm here with a very cool guest for the first show of the year, Mr. ShaneTHazel. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, first show of the year. I didn't know that. There's no pressure.
No
2023.
pressure, man.
Thing, right?
I had to have you on first. It just seems so fitting.
You can just you'll just go up from here. I mean, after this is like bottom rung, right? Like from here, your trajectory is going to be the sky.
Other than my first show, you were I think the second most listened to show out of all of my shows.
Oh, cool.
When you came on the first time, the first one, a bunch of people listened to, and I probably scared half of them off. But
That's, you know what? That's okay, man. If I've learned anything in podcasting, it is be yourself and be very, very true to what's in here. Not the externality. Those other people that, are into the same kind of stuff you are looking for that voice, or maybe that are on the fence, man. I tell you what, a lot of times somebody who's sincere, that comes across with no kidding, messaging that's based in truth, like a lot of times you're going to earn a lot more listeners that way, especially the good ones.
yeah, I mean, things have grown. Like it went down like to a very plateau for a while, and it was kind of the same every week. But then, it's all about having guests on the show. People only want to hear me and Bubba rattle at each other so much. You got to have some more people on. But it's also hard to find people to do the show because it's a little more controversial per se. Or we talk about topics that, people are worried about losing their job or something. I don't know if I should do this, because I have some friends who come from Iraq that I really want to have on this show because they're very knowledgeable about government oppression and how things are going here. Like they came here for a reason, and now it's turning into something that they tried to seek refuge from. It's very odd, but they're worried about losing their job in the meantime. So, in time, hopefully they come on, but, Happy New Year, y'all. And, we kind of had a cool weekend, being a Michigan and Georgia residents, the college football playoff. That was interesting. At least your team won.
I was really pulling for the Wolverines, man. Obviously being from Michigan, that was my first love in terms of football. And golly, man, I did not think TCU was going to show up the way they did. But I mean, I'll tell you what, man, Michigan's got a good team. They've got, a good chance next year. And the TCU, they're just a damn tough team. And I'll tell you what, if Georgia shows up like they did against Ohio State, TCU could walk away with it.
Right. I mean, they surprised everybody. I kind of knew right off the rip when that game started, they went for it on that fourth down at the goal line, didn't get it. And then the next possession was a pick six. And I'm like, this is going to be how this game turns out. I already know it. And I knew it. And I kind of stopped paying attention because it turned into a blowout for a while. I'm like, dude, why am I even watching this? But I kept watching. And then
it was 21-3 or 21-7 or something there for a minute. And I was just
21-3 for a while.
This is tough to watch. I mean, when you can only get a field goal, like that's just, man, there's something very demoralizing about only being able to rack up field goals for some reason.
That, and you're supposedly one of the best defenses in the league in college football, and you're letting TCU run muck on you, like run up the score like that. Holy shit. I was so mad. And then, forward to the Georgia game. Now, being a Michigan fan, I hate Ohio State.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I loathe them. Fuck the fuck eyes is what we say out here,
I have two that live in my house.
Oh my God, no.
And I mean, they are
your P's and Q's.
No, man, I give them all kinds of horse shit about it. It's just like the Ohio State, Ohio State minus Florida might be one of the most hated teams in all of college football. And for a very good reason, man. A lot of times it's the fans. Their entire life is wrapped up in the outcome of every weekend or the season or whatever it is. There's always excuses. There's always this. There's always that. Man, I got to tell you, I am not a Buckeyes fan, not to say the least. I've never been a Buckeyes fan, being, my first love obviously being Michigan. And it's like, God darn, like now they're coming down here. So, I was giving my mother-in-law hell the entire week. I was like, you want to watch it together? You want to place a bet? What do you want to do? I was like, the Big Ten's coming down to the SEC, going to play in the Chick-fil-A Bowl in Georgia, home of Chick-fil-A. And like,
right.
Yeah, They didn't want any part of it. And just talk, talk, talk all season. And then I was like, oh, let's take a bet. And I got to tell you, man, I was a little bit nervous when we went in. What was it? To halftime, and we were down, man. Like the extravaganza in terms of point scoring in that first half. I was just like, where is the damn defense?
It looked like Georgia was going to get blown out, which was really pissing me off. We couldn't have Michigan lose and then Ohio State win. Like that would have just really, boiled us all over here, in Michigan.
Yeah.
And I was like, this can't happen. And then, Georgia pulled through and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then, the whole field goal at the end of the game. I mean, I don't know if that was a laces out situation or what. I don't know what the hell he was kicking at, but it wasn't anywhere near the goalpost.
May Dan Marino rotten hell.
Laces out, Dan.
Well, I mean, especially, the way that it was made out to be, that it was like right at midnight and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of like going back and forth. And it was very close, don't get me wrong. But like the 1 point at the very end, and that's it for New Year's, right? Like New Year's is over and Georgia's victorious by 1 point on a mixed, what was it, 50? I think it was a 50-yard field goal. Like nothing to sneeze at. But I mean, I think he had the distance. He just shanked it, and
it went way left, and I was like, "Wow, dude, that just happened."
I
don't know if somebody got a finger on it or something because it wasn't even close.
Like, well, it's
that's the way the cookie crumbles, I suppose. Thank you, football guys.
When it's all down, man, and I think that's what a lot of football comes down to is, can you perform under pressure? And that was the best part. Is like, Georgia, every time they had an answer, and it was a fun, is exciting game. It was probably one of the best games I've ever seen, if not the best game I've ever seen.
That was it was pretty good. And to be quite honest with you, that's the first time I've made it till midnight on New Year's in like probably 5 years or so. I'm in bed, man. I don't stay up for that shit.
Same here. I know what happens. It's going to turn the year, and everybody's going to have a hangover the next day. They're going to feel like shit. The kids need breakfast at like 7 or 8 a.m. Like, no, man, I'm going to bed. I'm with you. I wasn't drinking. It was one of those things where I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. So
yeah, I stayed up, and then as soon as the game was over, the TV was off though, and I was in bed. Now there wasn't no hanging out. I'm looking at my wife going, "It's time for bed. Like I can't do this no more. This is way too late. I feel like an old person." I mean, I am in my 40s now, but I sound like a grandpa. Like, oh my God, I can't just stay up past 9.
I think that's responsibility bleeding through, bro.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, you got to do it at some point.
But yeah, man. So, the first thing I want to talk about with you is something that's pretty awesome in my eyes and lots of people's eyes, and let me start by saying this, before your debate, I was kind of black pilling hardcore. I really was. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this podcast? Why am I so involved with trying to bring people to liberty? Nobody's listening. This is bullshit, And then I watched your debate. And dude, number one, you killed it.
Thank you.
And number two, I have to tell you what happened. So here I am. My wife's, she's going to school right now. She's studying, she's going into radiology and whatnot. And so she's doing her homework, and I'm on my phone. I looked it up on GPTV, the debate, and I'm watching it. And you get up there, and as soon as you ask Kemp if he wanted to say sorry to anyone, I marked the fuck out, dude. Like I literally jumped up out of my seat and was like, whoa, that did not just happen. And my wife's looking at me like, what is going on? Because she's not into politics at all. God bless her for, editing the show and whatnot. But she's just like, she doesn't like it. But she's like, what is going on? I'm like, did you just hear what just happened? She goes, yeah, he asked me if he was sorry. I was like, you don't understand what that just did, because you had him looking like a deer in headlights and like, and he didn't know what to say. He's like, was that a question? And you're like, yeah, that's a question. And then from there on out, you had them both. You had them, and it was great. Now,
yeah, I mean, and let me say, like, politicians are like, the more I've been in politics and around politicians, which around other like establishment politicians is not very often, but I will tell you that the times I've been around them, they're dumb. They are dumb as fuck. And I mean, I don't mean this as like just to be mean or crude. I mean this in the most literal sense possible. They are indoctrinated puppets of the banks. And I say that because, like you were saying, like, hey, what should I be doing in terms of liberty? Why am I doing all this kind of stuff? The incentive structure doesn't make sense for a libertarian party. And it's just something that I, unfortunately, am come to grips with. It's just you look at how the whole system is set up. If you can't fund and you don't have money and you can't get money and you're not going to ever get the kind of money that it takes to be out in front of the masses, boy, you've got just damn near no chance whatsoever at ever winning, and maybe barely even making an impact. So, these fringe type races like this one, to walk in there and see these guys. Stacy is super nice in person. I think Brian's pretty nice in person. But Brian is a child, and Stacy doesn't know the damn first thing about leadership. Neither one of them do, and that's when you start to see them like that. I mean, honestly, Stacey Abrams was on the other podium, and I could literally see her right hand, kind of like shaking.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, wow. The emperor of Earth or the president of Earth or whatever the hell it is, the president of the galaxy, whoever she was, portrayed to be in Star Trek. Uh, for somebody to be, hoisted by the mainstream to that point, then you got Brian Kemp. It's like, man, you shouldn't be the governor. And you demonstrated that over the past couple of years. Like your default, position is tyranny. So to go in there and have waited as long as I had waited to be able to do exactly that, man, I've had it in my brain for a very long time that I'm gonna go in here and like Sherman burn it down. Like it was time.
You did burn it down, but like, where did you come up with this stuff? Like, did you write this stuff down or you just kind of winged it?
Yeah, so I've done prep in the past for debates. I didn't prep for this one. It was one of those things where I think when you do this stuff long enough and you have a show and you talk and you know everything inside and out, you do your own research in terms of what you're doing for your show. You do your own hop research for these people, and you'll pick up some things here and there in terms of research because people will send you stuff. They're like, "Hey, man, do you know about this with Brian? Do you know about this with Stacy?" And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But sometimes you get a more granular look at it. And so, if you can just put that stuff away and get ready because the format. Like this is my third debate in terms of the Georgia Public Television debate series. And so what they do is they'll have the questions, and then you get a question and give a question to your opponents. And so if you know this going in, and you also know that the libertarian is really kind of just cannon fodder, he's there for appearance and appearance only, to make it look like they're fair, that they're giving everybody who's on that ballot of a choice. And that they're not going to ask you questions, and they're going to banter back and forth, where they go, hey, Brian Kemp is done X, Y, and Z, or Stacey Abrams is proposing X, Y, and Z, and they never mention you. You're never going to get to respond. So you have to be that person that's just like, this game inside and out. And you get to go, hey, I'm going to weigh in on this, or I'm going to make a scene because I'm going to point out that you guys are giving both of these guys questions and you're not doing anything with the libertarian, and you have to, you have to point it out. You have to be somewhat classy about it, but at the same time, you can't be, a whiny bitch either.
Right. Well, I could tell, like, even Bubba, he was like, man, it looked like they were trying to play a little monkey in the middle with Shane, and not really include you, and you weren't having it.
No,
Like
no.
you spoke up and you were not having it, which was great.
I told the people that put it on beforehand, from the Atlanta Press Club. I've known these guys for a while too because I've done their silly things. I said, if you guys think that you guys are going to go back and forth like you did last time between, I think it was Ossoff and Purdue, I was like, man, no, I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to make a scene, and it's going to be worse for you guys than it is for them. Like it's going to get real bad. So make sure you're asking everybody questions and giving everybody fair time. So when they didn't, I was just like, all right, game on, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, you did it, you killed it. I called it you were calling it the woodshed debate. I was calling it the debate heard around the world. Cause I mean, that probably got shared, hundreds of thousands of times, throughout the social media world. And it was, it took people by storm. Now, let me ask you this. How come you were invited to the first debate, but not the next one? Like, how
So
does that work?
yeah, so the Atlanta Press Club is the one that actually pays for this debate, and they do it through Georgia Public Television. They do it always. It's every time. So Georgia Public Television and the Atlanta Press Club look like they have a fair type of coverage, and that's the only reason you get invited to these. They want the appearance, and then at the same time, behind the scenes, a lot of people don't see this kind of stuff. Is they get green rooms and they get security and they get people, and all this kind of stuff. And what do we get? We get a stage off the hall that's next to the green rooms. And I don't know if they have extra green rooms. It's Georgia Public Television. I got to imagine they've got more than 2 green rooms.
Right.
And you don't get one. You get this stage room where it's completely black with insulation. There's nothing on the walls. There's nothing going on. They may give you a chair if you're lucky, and they might give you some snacks or something like that. And it's I think what they're trying to do is go in there and have you mentally psyched out where you don't rate, you don't get what these guys get. You're not going to be treated the way these guys are treated. And they do it right before the debate so that you're maybe, I don't know, a little bit rattled, but from a guy that's slept in some really terrible, awful places and done
Right.
awful things like, oh, you're going to put me on in a sound stage somewhere, not in a green room. Oh, boo hoo. Like I've experienced a lot. This is going to just fuel the fire for these guys. So they'll bring you out on stage and parade you like they're fair and all that kind of stuff, and they want to hear from you. They're not. They don't want to hear from you. They're not going to ask you, a lot of times they're not going to ask you serious questions, or they're going to give you questions to stereotype you, like, hey, Mr. ShaneTHazel, like, what do you think about cannabis? Like, that was my first question.
That was funny.
That was like, really, you're like out of the box, like, okay, this guy wants to obviously end the drug war, and to be able to absolutely annihilate them on things like that and other things where you get the opportunity or have to interject yourself. It just comes with, I think, experience.
Yeah, I mean, you did great. I thought it was great when towards the end, and you just totally let Brian have it about what you didn't agree with him with, which was a lot. And he just stood there and was like, he didn't know what to do and he didn't know what to say. And whoever made that meme that with you and him that said make politicians shook again, that was genius. That was hilarious. And that went around a lot. And I had a lot of fun with that one too, because I did mess with Brian every day on Twitter until the election every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think he's a child. I don't think a lot of people speak to Brian that way, and whether it's his people or the people that are around him, I don't even think a lot of the opposition talks to Brian that way. And so, when you finally call him, and he knows for a fact that the people that are off in the distance, if you really wanted to snatch the life out of them, you could. Like, I think there's something to that when it all boils down, something in the the back of his little survival mind there, like, yeah, maybe I should run if this guy flinches. Like, that guy's
Right.
he's a child.
I mean, he kind of showed that. Now I'm going to ask you a question that a lot of us are probably wondering. It seems a little sketchy that the vote difference between you and Chase Oliver was so much.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the question, I guess. So historically, you look at what the vote totals, right? And so in the last election for governor in 2018, Ted Metz, really great guy. I don't know if you guys know Ted Metz. He's a fantastic voice down here in Georgia. Ted got, I think, somewhere around the neighborhood of the same percentage that I got. And, obviously terrible, yeah, in terms of, overall vote count. And it was almost 100,000 votes less than I got for Senate just 2 years ago.
Oh,
You look
wow.
at, you look at Chase, like, I got 115,000 votes for Senate in 2020. I think Chase got somewhere around 90,000 or something like that for Senate. So, if you do apples to apples, for Senate, then Chase, underperformed that by about, 25,000. So that's give or take. Now, for the executive position in 2018, we were very much in line with Ted Metz. I think we got less, but I'll tell you, Georgia voting is one of the most corrupt voting systems in the entire country. And I don't believe for a second that it's not manipulated. I don't think for a second it's not tinkered with. I don't think, I'd trust the outcome either way. Brian Kemp is the Secretary of State, back in the day that, had these things installed.
Oh,
And
geez.
yeah, and Brad Raffensperger, basically his hand picked to succeed him, was that guy that, in the 2020 election. And, after that, I think he's just kind of stood in line. Like, I remember the first time I met Brad, and when he asked, like, what are you running for? It was at, the first time I ever ran was as a Republican. I was at some Republican Christmas party or something sort in Gwinnett County. I said, I'm running for the Georgia 7th. He goes, who's in that position now? And I said, Rob Woodall. He goes, I don't want anything to do with this. Right. Because I was primarying another Republican who was already in Congress. And I was like, you
Right.
fucking pussy. Right. Like, it's just, that's the type of guy I think Brad is. It's, he's a child, most of these guys, like I said, not only the dump, but they're absolute children when it comes to standing up against the state and, showing a little testicular fortitude for what they claim to represent.
Yeah, especially anybody out of the GOP at this point.
Yeah.
Jeez. And it's funny to watch them come out and be like, oh, we're for smaller government. Oh, we're for fiscal responsibility. And Biden's spending is this, that, or the other. And I always chime in and be like, hey, do you not remember how much money Trump spent? Do you not remember how much money Bush spent? I mean, come on, you guys, it's no different, and you call them out, but whatever. But, since your debate, a lot has happened within the government. A lot has happened within the government since your debate. Actually, one being the dog and pony show that just happened with Zelensky coming in front of Congress. It's great to watch an actor act in front of all these people and them to glorify and wave his flag for him and stuff. That really pissed me off, actually.
Yeah.
But that being said, the Republicans and Democrats, and I bring this up because I find you to be very economically literate. You really know your shit when it comes to that and Austrian economics. And they hold hands and they spend another $1.7 trillion to give more money to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And to also, which you'll dig this, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but in there is $300 million supposed to go to the VA hospitals, which, that should be good. But we don't have it.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to print this and expect things to calm down on inflation. Like,
no. I mean, when you boil down, I guess inflation, right? When you boil down inflation, if you're printing money out, into existence, fiat currency, you have more money chasing the same or less amount of goods and services. And let's face it, we're not exactly setting records of GDP right now. So when your GDP is either stagnant or manipulated to look like it may not be stagnant, but let's face it, you don't do what happened in 2020 and everybody stays home and production and services stay the same. That's not, how any of this happens. Supply chain breakdown happens. When you have supply chain breakdown, you have economic forces and regional global forces that are now threatening places like Taiwan, or whatever other industries are out there. You definitely have more money chasing less goods and services these days. And so the idea that inflation is ever going to come under control, they could raise the interest rate to 20% and it still wouldn't come under control. Because the thing is I don't think people trust banks anymore, right? Like, they're not going that. And that's the thing, is the mechanism of interest is meant to get people to put their money in banks to save so they get a better return on their inflationary dollar, because inflation is just a tax, right? So if you are running, let's say, conservatively 10% in terms of inflation, which I think we're well above 20, honestly, and you're only going to get, I don't know, 7-8% out of a bank, it doesn't make any sense to put your money in a bank. You're going to be losing value. You can't put money in bonds because bonds are now upside down, 10, 20, 30-year bonds. Those things are absolutely toast right now. Nobody's getting, their money back because of inflation. And real inflation, they're losing probably somewhere around, 15%. on those bonds. So it's like, all right, like, what do you guys really have planned? And there's no plan. There's one of three things can happen. They can either default, which they're not going to do. They're not going to default on our debt. They're not going um, to slow down the printing. They're not going to stop spending, and that's that'd be the second thing. You're not going to slow down spending. You're not going to stop spending, because slowing down or stopping spending in a Keynesian economy, as which we have, is you just go into recession. And if you're in there for 2 years, that's a depression. So your GDP growth is negative. The only thing that these guys have left in their disposal is to print their way out of debt. And so what are they going to do? They're going to continue trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in new money, new fiat bullshit that devalues everything that you've ever done, that's in a dollar, that's in an exchange, that's in a foreign exchange, that's in the stock market, that's in a bond market, whatever it is. Like, all of these things are being annihilated right now. And then on top of it, you got places that are not Bitcoin, that are crypto, that are out there, that are absolute schemes, that we've always said, hey, these are securities, they're not regulated like securities. These guys are going to go broke. The money is not there. Just because they have a coin called FTT, or on an FTX exchange, doesn't mean that thing's worth a shit. Like, it just means
Right.
that some guy said, hey, you know what, we're going to call our coin this. They set up an exchange, they take a lot of money, hundreds of billions of dollars, and then poof. So yeah, inflation is not going anywhere. They're doing quantitative easing into infinity at this point, and what people are watching is the implosion of an empire, because the central banks don't have an answer to what Bitcoin is. They don't have an answer to gold. They don't have an answer to silver. They don't have an like an answer to hard assets. And so as this thing continues to march along, I think 2023, guys, like, if you're still in cash, you're still in exchanges, you're still in 401ks, all that other kind of stuff, my recommendation to you is get the F out. Get into hard assets, take care of like your essentials first and foremost. Get in, like, if you can become anti-fragile, you got some chickens you can raise. You
Yep.
got, a place where you can get out of town, you can stock up, whatever it is. Start making whatever plans and moves you can, because I think 2023 is going to be the year.
It's going to be interesting. And that being said, which is you just kind of opened the floodgates to this. And I wanted to bring this up because you are a very big advocate for it. But let me start by telling you this story from 2013 so you can get a really good laugh at me.
Oh no, I'm not going to laugh. I'm feel bad if it's a Bitcoin story from 2013.
So 2013 comes along, and my wife and I were just dating at the time. We got our first apartment together. We've been dating for a year, but I lived with a buddy. I literally moved just one building over from where I lived before, and her and I get this place together. And my old roommate comes over a bunch. And one day he comes over talking about, hey, give me $50 to invest in this digital currency for me, or, digital currency. I'm like,
Oh,
what is it or whatever? He's like, yeah, it's Bitcoin. It's probably, I think it was either 3 cents a coin or 0.3 cents a coin at the time. It wasn't anything. He's like, give me this $50 and, I'll invest it for you. I'm like, and at the time we were broke. We had no money, dude. Anyways. And I'm trying to like pick his brain.
magic internet money,
And he's like,
especially
well,
not cash.
yeah, it's this digital currency. And I'm like, it's not tangible. You can't see it. You can't hold it. Well, no. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, man. I don't want anything to do with that shit. What is wrong with me?
Nothing, man. I was the same way back then.
Oh my God. So I laugh him out. Guess who just bought, and if you're familiar with Michigan still, are you familiar with Northville?
No, where's it?
Northville. It's a pretty uppity place, it used to have a racetrack and whatever, but you got to have a little bit of coin to live there. Well, said gentleman just bought a brand new condo from his Bitcoin money. Like, he doesn't have a mortgage. He paid for it.
Yeah.
Like, wow, dude. And here I am, sitting here with my dick in my hands going, damn it, dude. I missed out on all that. And he did. He made a killing, and he's still making a killing. He's already taken out his original investment and everything. Like, it's all free Bitcoin at this point. It's all free. Yeah.
Well, let me maybe comfort you a little bit. So I really didn't start learning about Bitcoin until about 2018, and I was not sold. Being of the Austrian school, it's one of those things where a lot of times what you're talking about is hard assets, especially in history. Everybody ever read, whether it's Hayek or Rothbard or Hoppe or any of the other greats, right? He's like, they always talked about hard assets, money, silver, land, other commodities, and things like that. And when you start to think about, this new digital asset, not, and not just an asset, it's not a security. It's a real, it's no kidding, it's a commodity. And I didn't know that. I was thinking, oh, this sounds maybe a little too good to be true. I didn't know the history of it. I didn't know how it came along. I didn't know any of that kind of stuff. And I thought I was late to the game when it started to skyrocket. I was like, oh man, I'm too late to the game now. Never going to be worth a damn thing. What I didn't realize and what I didn't understand is what Bitcoin is. And it takes some study. It takes some, real, like, almost trust in some people that are trying to help you. They're not trying to sell you, because let's face it, most people don't get anything from you acquiring Bitcoin. I will tell you, it's very early in Bitcoin. It's super early. The last Bitcoin won't be mined until the year 2140. So
Wow.
now you start to have to understand, like, is it going to get, is it going to get crazy again? Well, yeah, it has to get crazy again. And here's why. Because as all these other financial institutions melt down, and you understand that when you look at the value of Earth, like, you're going to sell Earth, right? All the bonds, all the debt, everything ever. If you looked at that, you're looking at somewhere around $400 trillion. 400 trillion. Now, take gold for instance. Gold is I think it's a $10 trillion market cap. If we were to get to the point of gold, right? Like about 10% as Bitcoiners of the of what their market cap is. What we're talking about is $1 million per Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Now, Bitcoin is harder than gold in terms of, when we talk about principles of money, like, is it saleable over time, space, and scales? And does it have a good proof of work? Well, yeah, it has all of those things, and it's better than any money ever invented. So, as people with money, and there's the old saying that money doesn't wait, as money begins to move out of these failing asset classes, like, I don't know, the stock market, the exchange market, the bond market, all these fiat driven, you know, Ponzi schemes, right? Like, that's basically what they are, because
Exactly what they are.
you're basically in a shitcoin casino, because that's what fiat money is. You're trying to preserve, or at the best case, you're trying to maybe earn a little extra by making some good investments. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is just not lose because of inflation. So as that money moves, and money does move, and it moves fast, as this thing begins to crumble more and more and more, and more of the smaller countries, the disenfranchised countries, the people that have been run over by fluctuations in Federal Reserve currency in the past, whether it's Argentina, all the different countries in Africa, parts of the Middle East, parts of Eastern Bloc of Europe, you name it, right? Like, all these countries have seen their currencies collapse. Venezuela, I mean, look at what's
Oh,
happened to that
geez.
place, right? You start to see, the opportunity here for a money that can't be manipulated, a money that can't be touched by a president or a king or a bank. It's just a computer chip that runs one thing and one thing only, and that is the algorithm for Bitcoin. So when you start to see this happen, and you start to see people evangelize and come online and get in, the thing is everybody's early. Everybody is early to Bitcoin. There were some people who were early to Bitcoin, or I should say earlier to Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, it's only what, since 2009. I think the Genesis block was mined 14 years ago today. Like, that's the thing. Like, the Genesis block, the first block of transactions for Bitcoin was mined this day 14 years ago. There is a higher adoption of Bitcoin in the world than the internet at the same pace. So, what I'm telling everybody is Bitcoin is being adopted faster by the world than the internet. And look what the internet has done to communications. It's decentralized communications. Right now, they can't keep truth in a bottle. And when people figure out that Bitcoin is the same for not only money, but communications protocol, and I think this is probably the most important piece. is communications protocol. I'm actually writing a book named the Communications Protocol right now.
Oh,
The
nice.
communications protocol for us as human beings, as a civilization, was corrupted by the Federal Reserve. Gold was pretty good until they confiscated it. And when it was just coins that you could trade without anybody knowing you were trading it, it was really good. That's actually the period of humanity where we saw the largest growth in wealth, in technology, in our entire civilizational history that we know of. And so to look at it now and understand that where this is headed, boy, the ability to do this and do this the right way, man, we're cavemen that are moving into a completely different age, and Bitcoin is going to change everything.
They're accepting it at some places here now. Just gas stations I've seen. Gas stations are taking Bitcoin, and they also have Bitcoin ATMs at these gas stations.
Yeah, McDonald's is already taking it. Starbucks is already taking it. Like
Oh,
they're
wow. Okay.
yeah, like especially if you're using like Cash App and the Lightning Network, man. Cash App is layer 2 technology. They're working on some layer 3 stuff, which is really pretty cool. Like the guys over at Synonymous, these like all of this kind of stuff is starting. It's layered technology. So when I say communications protocol, what they've done is they've fixed it where the old corrupt force and coercion style, like that's not going to happen anymore. When they want to take your money and your assets, they're not going to be able to do that. It makes the communications protocol between me and you consentful versus a rigged fiat system. And that's the problem, is everything that it touches, everything that fiat ever touches, it corrupts. and
Absolutely.
and that's right. And at the highest levels, it does. It corrupts absolutely. It's amazing what it's going to do for culture in terms of people being able to say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Right? Like it's not just going to change the guys at the top. It's going to change, especially those of us down here that just want to live our lives and be left alone. That girl that's going out to Hollywood thinking she's going to get an acting job and getting on a casting couch and doing whatever she can to pay the bills, and that stuff's going to stop. Like at some point, when your money is a deflationary asset, which means it's worth more over time. It's not only the perfect store of your time and effort and your contribution to humanity, but the fact that it's going to compound over time in terms of the amount that it's worth. Man, you're talking about literal generational changing wealth for a lot of really great people.
I mean, and I'm totally for it because, at this point, the way they're spending, I'm sorry, the way they're printing money and spending, and there's no end in sight. They're not going to stop doing it.
No.
We have to decentralize our money, and we're going to have to do it ourselves. They're not going to do it. They're
Mhm.
just going to keep doing what they do, and we have to break free of that. And I think that Bitcoin is a great idea. Now, let me ask you how you feel about gold and silver.
I love them. Gold and silver are both. I mean, they're hard assets. They spend, and in a transitionary economy like what we're about to experience, if nobody's taking dollars anymore, and let's face it, if you guys know about BRICS, the agreement between China, South Africa,
I was going
Saudi,
to bring that up, actually. Yeah.
yeah. So they're de-dollarizing very fast. Saudi Arabia doesn't want to take our money anymore. Do you know what happened to some of the last Middle Eastern countries, like Saddam Hussein and those guys that didn't want to take the American petrodollar anymore? Like those guys went to war
Yeah. They
and
got
got
leveled.
killed. They got hung. They got sodomized and drugged through the streets like Gaddafi. Like, man, this is a giant deal because you can't just roll into China and go to war with China. It's not feasible. It's not possible. You can't print enough money that people will accept. And if you don't have the energy behind it, then your dollar is worthless. And that's the only thing, let's face it, the only thing that was propping up the dollar was oil, from other parts of the world anyway, right? Like that was the only thing that was propping up the dollar. So as BRICS becomes more solidified and more members are brought in, Iran, Saudi Arabia, places all over Africa, like, man, it's
I think
over.
Canada's in on that.
I wouldn't be surprised, man.
Pretty
They
sure.
got
I'll
tons.
send you a video. I'll send
Yeah.
you a video that that's what put me up on it. And I think it was Canada, Russia, Saudi Arabia, China, And I think Qatar's in on that too.
I'm sure they are. I think there's actually even more than that. But you're talking about, over a third of the world's population between India and China alone that are in on BRICS, not to mention some of the most, energy rich countries in the world. And I will tell you right now, if they, I don't know that China will ever accept Bitcoin, but I think places like Russia will. I think places like Venezuela will. I think Saudi Arabia and a lot of the other countries in the Middle East, they're very much considering what Bitcoin is and what it's going to mean to their future, because without the US dollar propping them up, they're going to have to hedge. But your question was gold and silver. Yes, absolutely. Gold and silver will always be worth the same thing, right? Like, it's not
Right.
against the dollar will fluctuate. But gold and silver per ounce at, I guess gold is like 1.5% inflation every year. I think silver's trending right now on Twitter, for God's sakes. They're talking about a Twitter or a silver squeeze. Silver could do very well. And I definitely, that was the first thing I invested in, was a bunch of silver, because I was
Oh,
poor and
nice.
didn't have money for gold. So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna buy a bunch of silver coins. Now, here's the key to all of it: own your own and put it in a safe. If you don't have a safe and you're buying gold and silver, you're wrong. Buy a safe first and then get gold and silver, right? And lead, for that matter. Gold, silver, and lead. Really
Okay.
precious commodities, right? Like, really, you should have a ton of those things. Or as much as humanly possible. And when you've got, that taken care of for your transitionary economy a period, where, especially if you're in a rural area like me and somebody doesn't understand Bitcoin and I can trade them some silver, then, great. Eggs are a good thing to be able to trade with people. If you've got skills in terms of growing things like fungi or mushrooms or medicine or anything else, I definitely also recommend learning those skills, because those could be very valuable, especially in that transitionary period, because we're going to go through a transitionary period. Could be later this year. I don't know.
It's coming sooner than later. Now, you brought up the brick and we're talking about gold. Now, with all that brick stuff happening and they're going to make their own digital currency, gold is going to back that, from
Mm.
what I've heard and read. Gold will back that, which puts people who want to buy gold, I think, in a bad spot, because I think gold will skyrocket then to where
Well,
it becomes unaffordable to average folks like us.
you got to also consider this, right? Is when these guys are saying that we're going to have a digital currency that's backed by gold. Digital currencies that are backed by gold that are centralized are no damn different than how the dollar started. And that's, if you're looking to repeat history like a madman, I guess maybe go do that. That's why I say own your gold. Investing in the BRICS economy, if there's, an opportunity to buy, whatever it is that they're, rolling around back and forth, you might get lucky in the beginning and make some, really favorable trades or something like that. But if you're not a trader, you don't know what you're doing, I don't recommend that at all. Right?
Right.
Like, every day you can be stacking sats, you can be buying silver, you can be, you can buy gold, and all of those things, are going to be worth something when everything else goes away. Now, if they centralize this and they say, you know what, we're changing the conversion rate now from, X amount of currency to Y amount of our currency per an ounce of gold, then you're in trouble, right? Like, this is exactly what happens with gold in U.S. history, and if there's a big enough demand, for it, if places like China, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, the more tyrannical parts of the BRICS alliance. I don't see you keeping your hands on gold, possibly not even silver. So at that point, you've got to start weighing, the odds. Is like, do you KYC and keep your own Bitcoin, your keys, your Bitcoin, don't leave it on exchanges, don't trust it to anybody. If you've got a cold wallet, make sure you're buying it from the manufacturer. Even, an adapter piece that you're plugging into your computer, if you've got, like a old USB and now you've got a new USB-C or something on your new computer, don't buy an adapter off of Amazon. Get your adapters or get a new cord or something directly from whoever's providing you with a cold wallet. Like, little things like this. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but there's also a great community out there that gets almost next to nothing when you buy Bitcoin, that's willing to help you on whatever this journey is going to be for you in terms of understanding not only the technical side of it, but the cultural side of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. We need to break free of it, or we're going to be in bad shape. And that's just what it is. I mean, I don't want to blackpill everybody, but at the rate it's going, I mean, we're going to go into an economic collapse, you guys, and that's just what it is.
And we're in it.
I mean, yeah, we're in it, and we need to, figure out how to combat it and stick together in times like this rather than fight each other, and that being said, now we're talking about a little decentralization stuff. Now, we all know that the government's not going to decentralize itself. That's not going to happen. They will keep getting bigger and bigger and make more bills and make more laws, and it'll never end. So things like this will have to start locally. Things like decentralization, nullification, start at a local level. What are things that we could do to start getting into that mode of decentralizing from the Fed locally? Do we, like people like me who aren't involved in politics at all, do we show up at our city council or town hall meetings and speak up? I mean, where does it all begin?
First, I would recommend getting a group together, and here's your message, right? Is like it's time, fellas, to be men, and it's time to get together. And they've exhausted a lot of our options. Fiat and the money is not an option anymore. They have rigged the system. Social media, minus maybe a few places out there that are not mainstream, have worked against you. They're taking your money by force and coercion to oppress you. I mean, literally. Now it used to be against the law, and then they did it. Your message needs to be to your local sheriffs and your local mayors, and it needs to be very firm and very solid. And I recommend somebody who understands this very well take this message to them, right? Is like, look, guys, very soon you will be offered a central bank digital currency for payment. The banks are gone. You're going to be cut out of that. Your hierarchy is going to be the central bank. It's not going to be anybody in the state of Georgia. It is going to be these guys who are the bankers here. And what are they going to do? Right? They're going to offer them carrots just like they do today. And I think for a long time now, especially like the war on drugs has been a conditioning exercise for a lot of these guys, right? You want to use civil asset forfeiture? We're going to give you lots and lots and lots of money to use civil asset forfeiture. Is it a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment? Hell yes, it's a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment, right? Hell, it's a violation of the Fifth and Sixth Amendment for that matter. So what do? They basically put it out on a carrot and said, hey, the sheriffs that will do this, the mayors that will have their police forces do this, we're going to give you a ton of extra money, and this is going to make your citizens so happy. So now all they have to do is change the carrot and remove a lot of other bureaucracy and oversight, and they're going to say, hey man, the CBDC, you keep doing what you're doing, we're going to keep giving you CBDCs. It'll feed your family, it'll keep you warm, it'll make your constituents happy. And then when it starts getting really bad, they're going to be like, yo, if you don't round up these guys in this district with this ESG cutting score or social credit score, guess what's going to happen? No more feeding, no more, no more feeding your family, no more clothing your family. Your community is going to get really, really pissed off with you. So you might want to go out there and round up these bad actors, or who they say are bad actors. That's right. The carrot on the string that I think I dangled, out there in the debate in front of Stacy. And so if you have the foresight to know this and see this, what you can do is take a group of people down and say, listen, this is what's going to happen, man. We can do this a better way. And it'll make your police officers, your sheriff's deputies, it'll make them safer, because at the end of the day, instead of going out and going after peaceful people to earn money, what we can do is turn you towards real violent criminals. And that's it. You go after the real violent criminals, and here's your contract. I will pay you in Bitcoin. These guys will pay you in Bitcoin. You will be able to feed your family. You will be safer. And as a community, we will be freer. If you can have those conversations now and identify who the sheriffs are that will take CBDCs and who won't take CBDCs, and get them out of office by voting, it's a lot easier than taking a lot of guys with a lot of big guns down and ousting them, throwing them in a jail cell, and distributing justice, like 1776.
People are too scared to do the 1776 now. They're shook. It's
Well, you put up some guys in a hard enough position, right? And they've got no other options, and that's the final option. It's like,
well,
all right,
yeah.
that's it. That's
I
and
mean,
I'll tell you, a lot of Americans are getting to that point now.
I know some personally that are fed up. I got some friends in the militia and whatnot, and they're like ready for whatever. And I'm like, calm down, fellas. Not yet. Like, we're not doing this. Good morning, NSA. I know you can hear us. Anyways,
Yeah, we're obviously saying, hey, the peaceful way out is the way to go.
peaceful way out is the way to go. But people are getting tired, and it's getting worse, and it's getting more real by the day. And for someone in my area to bring up, I live in hands down the most liberal part of Michigan, hands down.
Is that the Michigan University of Michigan area, Ann Arbor-ish?
No, I'm right outside Detroit, like, Royal Oak Park, Ferndale,
Pretty liberal.
it's about as liberal as you get out here. And so it's going to be hard to get people on the decentralization train out here, I think, but I would be more than willing to try. Like, I might do something crazy and run for school board the next cycle just to open some eyes,
Mhm.
because I hate our school system here. But we need to do some decentralization things in Michigan in general, because I don't know if you've heard, but there is a pretty major assault weapon ban up on the table
Yeah.
that is probably going to pass, because Michigan is full Democrat blown state now. All the legislature, everything, it's all Democrat. And you already know what time it is with Dirty Gretch up at the helm, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I don't think they're much different than Georgia. I know we just got constitutional carry, but it was an election year where this guy had to come very far to my side of the table on, quite a things, for people to not take another look. Yeah, I mean, I know it's one of those things that, whatever flavor of tyranny it is, it's like, oh, it's here. But I think there's enough people in Michigan alone with guns that might show up to the Capitol that said, yeah, we're not doing that. Because I do remember a few years ago, my buddy Magnus and a few of the other guys that showed up down there in full force, the Boog boys, and I think it made them reconsider quite a few things. And there are
I
enough
mean,
people.
they got in the Capitol with their guns, and that, you should have seen the outrage that made for people. And
Oh, yeah.
they didn't even point them at anyone. They had them around their shoulder as they're yelling at the cops. Like,
Yeah.
how is that so bad? They weren't in there breaking shit or looting shit or anything. They were in there yelling. It wasn't like a J6 where they're smashing out windows and shit like that, where that's a dog and pony show in itself. I don't believe a fucking thing when it comes to J6.
Well, not only that, but I mean, when you look at what the real offense is, right? Is you're taking on their religion. You're taking on the powers that be. You can't question their religion. You guys are heretics. And in reality, in history, those are the people who have been persecuted. Is the people who are heretics against the state or the church. All the same stuff. It's just tyrants being tyrants. And when you can't stand before your fellow man and explain yourself, come to them with a reasoning and consent and liberty and all that kind of stuff, when your empire is falling apart, what do you have to resort to? One thing that that you do better than anything else in this entire world, and that's death and destruction. That's why there's such this offense taken by these people that worship the state.
It is. It's cultish. It's
Yep.
like, people get mad at me all the time. Government is not a cult. Yes, it is. It's very cultish. I mean, for crying out loud, Donald fucking Trump is making NFTs as trading cards for $100, and people bought them. He sold out of them.
Yeah.
Like,
Crazy.
that is so cultish to me. Like, don't you have better things to spend your $100 on besides some fake ass trading card that has not Donald Trump's body, but only his face? It's definitely not him. I've seen some of them. It almost looks like they took a picture of skinny Biden and put Trump's face on it for real.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's those NFTs are as fictional as they a lot of people, if you're out there and you're in NFTs and crypto and all that stuff, let me tell you something, it ain't worth a damn. And not now, not ever, not this whole thing with NFTs and the fact that Trump is playing into that whole thing, especially with like superhero bodies and other bullshit.
Cowboys and shit, dude.
Oh my god.
It's so funny. Like, I cracked up when I saw some of those or whatever. But like, for real though, and funny thing, not too long ago, Donald Trump was like bashing crypto. And
Oh,
I
man.
don't believe in it, blah, blah, blah. And it's stupid. And
He was also
here he is,
defending,
making NFTs now.
yeah, he was also defending the Federal Reserve fiat and US dollars, basically saying that they needed to outlaw everything else. I mean,
Oh,
that guy,
yeah.
he
Go
shifts with
figure.
it, just like any
Go
other
figure.
politician.
They're all full of shit, man. I want it. You know what? At the end of the day, abolish everything and start over from scratch. That's my message. I'm sticking to it. Shane, thank you so much for your time, man. This was awesome. I don't want to take too much more of it. It's been about an hour. So
Sean, man, it's been a pleasure as always, brother. And again, my sincere apologies for yesterday, but man, anytime and you want to get together and shoot the breeze, I appreciate it.
oh man, always like, dude, you're my boy, Blue. Like you're one of the libertarians of all time. You're one of the first people I found, honestly, when I was seeking out libertarians again, after 16.
Wow.
It was you, Noel, Spike, and Joe Jorgensen. I found you guys all around the same time in 2020.
Oh man, it's a humbling experience and I appreciate it. Really can't thank you enough, man.
But yeah, thanks for your time and you keep doing your thing. Well, before we go though, what's next for Mr. Hazel?
Oh boy. So Radical's full time now, and I'm also launching and have launched this post-traumatic stress mission called Brave, and it is focused around the great psilocybin. If the more you know, right, is like you go tap in with a good shaman. You're not going to a party. Go out in nature where you're comfortable with a good person that understands what the hell they're doing, whether it's stress or post-traumatic stress or any of that other kind of stuff. We've got some great natural areas, not only here in North Georgia, but around the country. And a lot of those places, are very historic. And so if you can go and be still and have, your ego death and then your resurrection and see beyond, what this is and understand some things and the great mystery, it is it's an amazing thing who and what you can and will do and who you'll find and who you'll be in contact with. So yeah, that's my next great mission, man, is this post-traumatic stress mission. And it's not just for vets, man. It's we've all got stress, we've all got trauma. It's helping heal this mental health issue that we have naturally, maybe just with a single dose, and you're just like, well, after that, who knows? I don't know.
Amen to that. I'm a big advocate for as my mom would call it, silly cybin. Yeah, she calls it silly cybin, and it is very silly, you guys.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it can be. I'm a big advocate for that in cannabis. Those things have changed my life tremendously. So, for anyone who is thinking about it, like you said, though, don't just, start popping stems and caps and, thinking you're gonna, just have this okay, whatever experience, make sure you're good to go and have a clear mind, because things can go sour too,
You got to fight. There's some work to do. That's for sure.
That's right. But Shane, thank you so much. Until next time, much love, y'all.
Peace.